Hey, this is Brent Jensen, and you're listening to No Sleep Till Sudbury, the show where we talk about the music that makes your skin vibrate. Folks, this is the 5th and final edition of No Sleep Till Sudbury special Steam Whistle series. We are still here. We haven't been kicked out yet. Live on location at the Roundhouse facility in the heart of Toronto. I want to thank all of my friends here. I see one looking over at me right now. Sam is here. She is fantastic. She has been great to me the entire time. And my last guest is Stephen Stanley. I'm so happy to have you here.
Last and possibly least.
Not at all. I haven't seen you since what, March? Yeah, beginning of March.
We spent a weekend in Northern Ontario together when the walls came crumbling down. Brent came on a little mini tour with us where we went to played in Huntsville, we played in Bracebridge, and we played in Gravenhurst. And then the next day was lockdown day and everything ended. So we snuck some gigs under the wire that were quite good. And yeah, it's hard to believe that was March. Like that was March 7th, I think, was the last time I saw you. So
that's right. It seems like 2 years ago, at least. Like it's so long ago.
It does seem like 2 years ago. Yeah. In the same breath, it seems like it was yesterday. Like there's like a weird, like a week right now to me is a few hours. Like it just feels like everything is compressed, even though you would think it would drag on in these situations, but yeah, I don't know. It's a very, very strange time for sure.
It definitely is. Yeah. We have a lot to talk about.
I know this is going to be 3 hours,
but it is actually, it's going to be a 3-hour show. Get ready, folks. I'm so stupid. I was thinking about something on my way here. Wouldn't it be funny if your middle name was Tyler because you prefer Stephen instead of Steve? So I could say my last guest is Stephen Tyler Stanley. Like the marquee, and then it just got really stupid. Like on the marquee, you could put Stephen Tyler, and then on the side, like Stanley.
Well, you reminded me when we were touring in Ireland, we were just outside of Belfast 2 years ago, and we were about to go on, and a woman went up on stage who was like a radio host hosting the show, and she said, "Our next act is from Toronto, Canada. Please welcome Steve and Stan Lee." So she thought Chris's name was Stan Lee.
No way. How the hell did that happen?
I kind of like that. I think I laughed about it for I was still laughing 3 songs into the set. Steve and Stan Lee.
Marvel creator Stan Lee is now a musician and he's playing with this guy Steve. How weird is that? How did that happen?
I don't know. You misread.
That is just so
well,
bizarre.
I mean, I've seen another even better one for Julian Taylor. I think it's in Peterborough or Sudbury. It was a billboard outside the venue said, "Tonight, Julie and Taylor."
Oh, I saw that. Yeah. He put that up. Yeah.
People make mistakes. If they're funny, all the better.
See, that would be a good pseudonym if you didn't want the media attention. You just play like a surprise gig. It's Julie and Taylor.
Julie and Taylor. Makes it feel a little more sort of down home, right? The Julie and Taylor. Like, do some country songs.
All right. So your radio show.
Yes.
You've got a new radio show coming up. It premieres, I believe, the first week of December.
December 7th will be the first show on Hunters Bay Radio and out of Huntsville, Bracebridge, and Gravenhurst, anywhere in Muskoka, I guess. They're just in the process of opening a new studio in Bracebridge as well. So, it's going to be a weekly show. I'm kind of in the throes of defining what that show is going to be, but I'm really looking forward to it.
It's going to be a lot of fun. So you're thinking possibly about doing interviews?
I think I will. I think I'm going to try to bring somebody in every week, and then have a sort of a featured section in the show where we can highlight a Canadian musician and play a couple songs and talk a little bit about what they're doing. Mm-hmm. I just think that would be fun for me to sort of have a bit of variety rather than just talk song. So yeah.
So you're going to be playing Stephen Stanley stuff like all the time.
Basically, it's going to be like, of the 45 minutes of radio, 40 minutes will be my songs. And no, I'm definitely not going to go. I don't know. I just can't. I'm not going to go that route. I have no problem talking about putting music in the context of my career, but I can't be one of those guys that just plays his own stuff on the radio. Which more power to the folks that do, but it just seems. I'm not on for 4 hours. It's a short show. It's an hour long. So I got lots of avenues to promote myself, and that's just one where I'm trying to do something different and kind of shine a light on hopefully a lot of newer Canadian acts and be a part of a scene that I really like, that sort of what they're doing in Northern Ontario and in Muskoka, both from on the air and then sort of in the area when they do what they do with live stuff is I really want to be a part of. So I'm happy to be joining on.
See, I like what you said about the indie ethos there. And, we were talking earlier and even yesterday about Steam Whistle and how that is their same idea, right? About shining the light on the indie folks and bringing them up. It's
getting harder and harder, right? I mean, if you've paid attention during the pandemic of what's being released on a weekly basis, like I cannot believe how much new music is coming out right now. And which is great. And in a lot of ways, it makes sense. It's easier to record. It's easier to sort of push things through the system. And there's no touring going on. So it makes a lot of sense that a lot of artists are kind of hunkering down in their home studios and making records. To me, the other side of that equation is the shelf life for any given project is a lot shorter, especially when, you're up against Matt Berringer from The National or whoever, the Flaming Lips, or you name it. Bruce Springsteen has a new album out this week. The sort of the pros and cons of something like Spotify, from my point of view, is you have an easy avenue to hear all that stuff at once.
Right.
But I also think you've got a week and it's no longer on the radar. So
that's a good point.
It's quite something. So, this is going to be a small piece of the puzzle, but just giving artists that don't have that big machine behind them a chance to say a couple words about what they're doing is good with me.
I love it. I think that's great. I look forward to hearing it. You have also, something I'm very excited about. You have a new record coming out soon.
Well, let's not say
eventually.
Soon, but it's kind of an eventually right now. I mean, I'm getting more and more antsy. We're ready to record it. It's like completely written in my head. It's completely arranged. So to get into a studio and do it, I've just been kind of waiting to see how this all shakes down. We've made the last one on Wolf Island, which I'd love to do again, and that's what I'm hoping is going to happen. Part of the problem is it's a fairly small studio, so to get a band in there and then the people that would need to be there to work on the record from a production point of view may not be the safest place. Wolf Island's a little bit of a bubble unto itself, so I don't think they want a bunch of guys from Toronto showing up there. So I guess we'll see what happens in the next few months. All that being said, because I do have time on my hands. I could be starting in 2 days for all I know.
Yeah. Well, I said soon because I'm actually really excited about it. Yeah.
Thank you. As am I. And I feel like it's overdue now. And I don't think I've ever been in a situation where everything was so completely ready to go before going in the studio. I'm kind of thinking about what might happen after this album now already, and I haven't even started working on this one. So,
having said that, however, I like that you put the live record out. I think that was well timed, and it was a nice fresh spin on the Jimmy and the Moon stuff.
It was definitely a product of the pandemic. We recorded that in Germany, like pretty much 2 years ago now, and I knew at some point I was going to put it out somehow, but I just figured I'd just put it up on our website as a download for people that wanted to hear it. But then when the pandemic came along, I had the time to sort of sit and think, and realized that I had a pretty good, albeit 2-track, but a pretty good recording of the show, so I could get it mastered, and it worked out nicely. And I think it's pretty niche, and to me, it exists in a space where if somebody's like checking out Apple Music or Spotify, they'll find that and see it's something else there. And the way the part of it, you see all your analytics for those programs, and that seems to be exactly what's happening. People are showing up to hear Jimmy and the Moon, or I also put up 2 older albums this summer as well. So and they find that there's a live album to listen to as well. So they pop on and listen to a couple songs, and it's good. I mean, it got some radio play on Hunters Bay and then The Rock 94.9. So that's a surprise and a bonus. So
yes,
it's cool.
Yeah, no, we'll look forward to more of that for sure. Before we get into your tunes, I believe this is appearance number 5 for you.
That's right.
Longtime listeners will know that you and I have a bit of a running joke about me, and I think this was like episode 3, promising you a jacket.
And I don't want to spoil the surprise, but it looks like now because of the pandemic, the jacket's been moved to 10 episodes.
That's right. So we're gonna push that forward.
Maybe I'll negotiate it for 8 episodes.
It's like a carrot in the stick, right? So you just have to like.
It's like it keeps moving. It's called moving the goalposts.
That's right. The least I could do is bring a T-shirt in for you today.
And the T-shirt is beautiful. Now, is this available to the general public, or is this?
It will be. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. So you've got the first one, as a matter of fact.
That's the first one?
Some of the first ones.
Wow.
Sam got one.
Oh, I'm number 2.
Sam Nadelin got one. Lisa Taillefer got one. The Steam Whistle folks got some, but yeah.
That's great. Well, I'm thrilled. I'm a huge proponent of black T-shirts, as you know. So
I do.
This will go into the wardrobe and rotation regularly for sure.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good halfway point, right? So we're at 5. You get the T-shirt. 10. You get the jacket. 50. You get a car, and then maybe a house at number 100.
A car. If I'm the MVP of a season.
That's right. That's right. All right. So you have got some songs here that are fantastic. And I know that there is a great story behind all 5 of these. So let's get into that.
Yeah. And I want to, because we've done this 5 times, I think the first time, if you go back to episode 1 that I did with you, I really looked at it from the point of view of a lifetime of music, and here's the songs that have, cherry-picked songs that have meant a lot to me. Now I'm kind of working more in the present, where it's like stuff that is not all of it's recent, but to me, for some reason, I've come across it recently, and there's a reason that I've just kind of like gone, wow, this is unbelievable. So,
Okay, very cool. So the first one is the Flaming Lips.
Yes.
Mother, Please Don't Be Sad.
Yes, and I did it's called a show called My Tunes on Hunters Bay Radio last week, and featured this song, which has been my listened to the most this summer. This particular song, "Mother, Please Don't Be Sad." It just has this. I'm really big on songs that are have a bit of an edge, but also tug at the heartstrings. And this one's a complete heartstring tugger. And I just love that sort of piano pattern that starts it off, and Wayne Coyne's vocals always pull at my heartstrings when he's writing from a melodic point of view. And this is the Flaming Lips at their most melodic. They went through a period probably over the last 6-8 years where they did a lot of really sort of loopy psychedelic stuff that I was less interested in, just because that's take nothing away from it, but it's just not the type of songwriting that I sort of gravitate to. But this seems to be this album's a real return to like the soft Bolton and stuff like that. And I love it. And it also it tells the story of when Wayne Coyne was younger, and he was involved in a retail robbery where basically he was told to lie on the floor at gunpoint. And this song is supposedly him imagining what might have happened if things had turned ugly. And he's basically saying to his mom, "Don't be sad that I've died. It was an accident."
Wow.
And the first time I heard it and then understood what the story was about, when Los Lo toured the States for the first time, we were in San Francisco, which was a cool night. We were playing a club with a band called the Cadillac Tramps from OC that probably held 200 people, and it was a good crowd. Like just down the street from us, the Tragically Hip were playing a club that held 800 people.
No way.
And it was just one of those nights where it's like, wow, like Canada's really like the Canadian music scene. This is like probably 92 is really kind of making waves. Like it's moving. But before the show, I met a guy who was an expat from Toronto who had moved to San Francisco a few years ago, and he worked in a music store that was actually just down the street from the club as well. And he told me this whole story. Like as soon as we started talking, he had this look on his face, and that looked like something was really wrong. And he like he looked shell shocked. And he told me the story about how the night before the gig, the music store that he worked in had been robbed at gunpoint, 3 guys with semi-automatic weapons, and they tied him and his coworkers up and like sort of left them in a pile on the floor. And I was like, wow, like this doesn't happen this doesn't happen in Toronto. Wow. It's like, and basically as they were tied up, these 3 guys emptied out as much musical equipment as they could. I was like, wow, that's a big difference. And this was 1992 or 93. What a huge, and you could see it in his face. He was a Canadian guy who was like, what happened? So it's just had a weird sort of really reminiscent of the Wayne Coyne story.
Wow.
Maybe it's a lot more of an occurrence there than we know, actually. up here in Canada.
I actually think it is. Yeah.
Which is horrible.
It's, yeah.
Yeah.
But hard to conceive of.
For
I
couldn't
imagine
that. But he still came to the show a night later. That's good.
Yeah. Good. Well, yeah.
I guess, I think he was also straddling that line of, do I want to go to the Tragically Hip or I want to see Lowest to Low? And he came to see us, so that was cool.
Good for you. That's awesome. I love that. David Bromberg, Mr. Bojangles.
So I literally heard this version. I have full confession that I don't know much about David Bromberg. As Jerry Jeff Walker died last week, I guess, and there's been a lot of tributes posted about him. A great sort of Americana songwriter, and wrote Mr. Bojangles. That was sort of his main claim to fame, was having written Mr. Bojangles, which I'm not a scientist here, but I think if you did some analytics, you'd probably find that to be one of the most covered songs in the history of music.
Oh, yeah.
So I first heard that song. I think the second single I bought was a double A-side by Sammy Davis Jr., 45.
No.
That was The Candyman and Mr. Bojangles.
Oh, wow.
And listened to that, both sides of that, till it was worn out.
Yeah.
My first single I bought was Eric Clapton's I Shot the Sheriff. And I am not an Eric Clapton fan. So how that was my first single. I don't know.
Me either. That's funny.
I don't know why, but that was the first one I bought. I was a huge fan of that song, I Shot the Sheriff. So
it's a reggae tune.
Oh, it is? Yeah, it's a Bob Marley song. Music, falls into your lap in the strangest of ways. So the first time I heard that song was by Eric Clapton. And this Mr. Bojangles is a perfect example of that. So the first time I heard it was Sammy Davis Jr. doing this unbelievably, although I listened to it again a couple days ago, and it has quite an acoustic vibe to it, but I remembered it being, this very sort of soulful. He's got a very bombastic voice when the choruses come around, he kind of lets it soar. And then the next version I heard quite a few years later was Nina Simone.
Oh.
Who does a version with her voice and a piano, and it's probably the most sad and beautiful thing you've ever heard in your life. Like, it's just, I think she's one of the 10 greatest voices in the history of popular music. But that version is amazing. So flash forward to years later and finding out that neither of them wrote that song, which wasn't that's probably not a big surprise, but written by this songwriter named Jerry Jeff Walker. Mm-hmm. His version's nice. And then his version's kind of like Leonard Cohen doing Hallelujah. It's like, it's a nice version, but then people like Jeff Buckley came along and made it a signature song as a cover. Yeah. So Jerry Jeff Walker releases this, I think 68. I'm not totally sure if I have the year right, but somebody else, because he's part of some sort of songwriting conglomerate, releases a version on piano at the same time. So he doesn't get a hit out of it. It becomes kind of more marginalized, and he has a long storied career. Our guy today, David, was his guitar player for a few years. Oh. So this version of the song is David's version. It's a live album. Again, I think came out in the late 60s. And it's unbelievable. It's so good. Just him and an acoustic guitar. He's known for he's one of those guys that's known for playing lead and rhythm at the same time. So you get to the break in the middle of the song, you'll be blown away. But he also, in the middle of the song, tells the story of the song. And it's completely a true story.
Really?
Of Jerry Jeff Walker spending 3 nights in the drunk tank and meeting this guy named Mr. Bojangles, who was a guy who worked the clubs for tips and drinks by doing interpretive dance. I don't know. What else can you say? Like, it's incredible. I mean, and then the song has worked so well for so many different types of artists. Like, a great song is a great song.
I didn't know that at all. I didn't know that Mr. Bojangles was actually a real person. I thought it was a fictional thing. And my introduction to that song was through the folk door. And who was that who did that? Who did the folk version of Mr. Bojangles?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, like I said, I think this song's been covered so many times. It's like probably close to Yesterday by the Beatles.
It could have been, it's like a Jim Croce kind of Harry Chapin, and it could have been one of those two dudes.
I could see Harry Chapin doing it for sure.
Yeah, but that was it's funny because I couldn't, knowing Sammy Davis Jr. as you do, I mean, he was kind of the Rat Pack, maybe a little bit of Vegas schmaltz in there. It's kind of a weird combination, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, I think when it comes right down to it, a great song can transcend any style, right?
No question.
Like that. I mean, if you listen to even those 4 versions, Jerry Jeff Walker's version, Sammy Davis's version, Nina Simone's version, and then David's version, it's quite incredible how different it feels, but how much the same it feels at the same time. How they're all able to draw this incredible emotion out of it, because I think it's such a heartstring chord progression that it's all lives on. Yeah. But the reason I heard this version at all is because Scott McCoy, who is from the Baseball Project, from the -5, Young Fresh Fellows, he later on a second guitar player in R.E.M. for a long time. Mm-hmm. So I've met him once just by chance. My old friend who passed away a year ago, a guy named Dave Bookman, who was a Toronto radio luminary. I got a call on a Sunday night one time, probably late 90s, saying, "Can you bring all your guitars down to the Horseshoe?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, Peter Buck's in town with Scott McCoy, and they couldn't get their instruments across the border." Wow. So I said, "I'll be there in 25 minutes." So I came down to the Horseshoe with, I think I brought my Telly, my Les Paul, I have a Hummingbird Gibson acoustic, and my Gretsch, and then got to watch a show while those two guys played my guitars, which was so
Peter Buck,
so
that's
exciting.
Awesome.
Yeah, which was so exciting.
That's pretty cool.
But as you know, as I said, Dave passed away a year ago, and he died from an aneurysm. Mm-hmm. Just leading up to the point where this happened, Scott McCoy had a very similar thing. He had an aneurysm, and Peter Buck was allowed to sort of be by his side all the time in the hospital, and we talked about this every day. And then this happened to Dave, and unfortunately, the hospital wouldn't let us come in, and that was kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. So I pay close attention to Scott because he's completely healthy again. He's back on the road. He's writing songs. He's touring, and so he posted this about David Bromberg last week, and that kind of led to this whole long diatribe. So I thought maybe if we're going to do a song, I would play this song now, which is not Mr. Bojangles. It's a song called The Owl, and it's kind of about the power of information that exists inside any given person's record collection. Mm-hmm. And it's a tribute to my friend Dave, because it's a story about after he passed away. I won't say I helped in a minimal way, but there was he had a 600-piece record collection that was sold at Rotate This for charity, and I went down the day it was happening, and it was unbelievable to see the frenzy of people trying to get a little piece of him, and so that's kind of what the song's about, and just sort of knowing that everything you needed to know about Dave was in that record collection somewhere, which is pretty cool.
That's fantastic.
So it's called The Owl.
I love the song. Please go ahead.
Thank you. An owl appeared the day after you were gone, up by the bridge on Woodbine Avenue. Hanging on a branch, could hardly support its own weight. A flock of minor birds singing, hey, when you gonna go away? As I carried on, his old eyes followed my steps, and I couldn't catch my own breath. And that damn little voice in my head saying, did this have to be that day? And it spoke to me as it jammed my reception. Say there ain't gonna be no resurrection. And it carried on with just a hint of inflection, singing everything worth knowing is sitting in your record collection. Everything worth knowing is sitting in your record collection.
and the major key. It's a minor affliction of the heart. So tell me, how did this start? When you transplanted all of those things, and you taught a city how to sing, saying we gotta change everything, and we're gonna change everything, and we're gonna love everything. And it spoke to me as it jammed my reception. Say there ain't gonna be no resurrection. And it carried on with just a hint of inflection, singing everything worth knowing is sitting in your record collection. Everything worth knowing is sitting in your record collection. At least they know your story as you cast lots, the small and the great, yeah. And in a blaze of glory, they spoke of you for 40 nights and 40 days, yeah. I don't know how to answer when you ask, how was your day? And sadness like a cancer, it spread so far, but let the music play. And everything worth knowing is sitting in your record collection. Everything worth knowing is sitting in your record collection. Everything worth knowing is sitting in your record collection. Everything worth knowing is sitting in your record collection.
Whew. Wow. I'm going to tell you something. That might be your finest work.
Oh, thank you. That's really nice of you. And do you know the story about how that song came about?
No, I don't.
So there's a project that has been going on for several years called the Acoustic Guitar Project. And it's worldwide and basically has branches in Ontario, branches like in Sweden, and all started by one guy who I don't know, but a woman named Roseanne Thornley Baker runs it out of Ontario. And once a year, she gathers, I think, 6 or 7 songwriters, and you each get a week with this particular acoustic guitar.
Right.
And so you pick it up on a Saturday, you get a guitar and a little recording device. And by the following Saturday, you have to have written and recorded a single song. So I love those kind of challenges. And I also am most non-deadline oriented person on the planet. So having a deadline to write from was wonderful. So I picked up the guitar, and right away I kind of recognized that it was very much unlike anything I'd ever played before, and I loved that. It was really loose and stringy, and kind of right away said to me, I got to try doing something that's uses finger picking. So I kind of played the guitar all week, didn't do much in any kind of writing until Thursday night. And then Thursday night I sat down. I had this idea about the record collection angle. Thursday night I sat down, wrote the song, recorded it Friday, and that's very unusual for me. I usually kind of take a long time
just
to
like
write
that.
songs, but it just kind of came out at my dining room table on Thursday evening of whatever week that was, and
That's astounding to me.
yeah, it's funny because like by Thursday, as I talk about it now, I think I should have been feeling a ton of pressure. I was feeling no pressure. It was just like I knew something was going to happen because it was just so much. It was so much fun playing that guitar.
Wow, that is a special thing, man. I remember you telling me about that. We were actually texting back and forth, and you had told me about that. But I didn't know the
Yeah.
owl. I had heard you play that song, and we've talked about this. I love that song, but I thought that was a different song.
No, yeah, same thing. And the owl, also a true story. The day after Dave passed away, which was, it was sudden and it wasn't sudden. It was a long time that he was in the hospital, but I still wasn't ready and expecting it. But I went for a walk with my older daughter, and we were walking up Woodbine Avenue, and I looked up into the tree because there was all this noise that you wouldn't normally hear on Woodbine, because it's mostly cars and trains right underneath the train bridge that goes just below Danforth. And there was this massive owl sitting up on a tree, and like the lyrics wrote themselves, because it was sitting on a branch, and the branch was kind of going, whoa, like wavering down, because the owl was so big it couldn't hold it. And then there was this it was surrounded by all these birds that were screaming at it, like in its direction. I think basically saying, get out of our territory. But it looked down on me, and it was probably, 6 feet above my head, and it kind of scared the crap out of me. So anyways. True story.
Oh, fantastic. And that, that's going to be on the new record.
Yes. Well, that's a fun one, because I think, we haven't done anything before that's very minimalist. And I think this one will be quite minimal. Although I do have thoughts about adding a lot of vocals to it, a lot of sort of almost like Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young type harmonies on some of the parts. So
I had this conversation yesterday. A song like that, layers often happen when people try to kind of make something of, nothing, right? But a song like that, I don't know if I would necessarily do that. It's just such a great song.
Yeah, it could just, you might be right. It could just be, acoustic guitar, one voice, and a cello or something like that, just to add a little bit of
mood.
Who knows? That part of the fun of recording an album is you go in and try different things. I think, I mentioned that I've already sort of thinking about what might come next. And one of the things I want to do, because I've been doing, since the pandemic started, I've been doing a lot of live streaming from my backyard, and have reinterpreted a lot of songs from my back catalog for just voice and acoustic guitar. So I want to do an album of some re-records of some songs that, my song Under the Mitre Bird, which is on Jimmy and the Moon, and it's kind of a full-fledged band opus. I have a really nice version of it just for single guitar, and that's also finger picking. So I want to do something like that, just to sort of we're living in a world that, wants you to keep churning it out. And I think there's a good reason from my point of view, from a creative point of view, to do something like that right after I finish this next album.
There's no question. No, I look forward to that too. That's great. Song number 3 on your list.
Yes.
Drive-By Truckers, Thoughts and Prayers.
Yes. So this album, The Unraveling, came out. I remember walking down the street day after day, listening to it constantly, probably, just before we were up in Muskoka doing that tour, just before the pandemic hit. So they've since put out a second album. This band is quite prolific, but that album, The Unraveling, just knocked me over. There's something about knowing where a band's geography is. They're from Athens, Georgia. So they're from the South, from the deep South, and they wear their hearts on their sleeves. And this song, Thoughts and Prayers, is a complete indictment of the gun lobby. Basically, anytime there's a mass shooting, everybody falls over themselves to post thoughts and prayers, thoughts and prayers. You have my thoughts and prayers, but you have nothing else. And this song talks about nothing but that, about how, little kids are being gunned down, and all we have to offer them back is thoughts and prayers. All we have to offer the families back is thoughts and prayers. And there's some just unbelievably good lines in it about what's going to happen when these kids grow up and are actually adults that can be a part of the decision-making process, and how there's going to be a huge comeuppance. And then the payoff line at the end of the song is, stick it up your ass with your useless thoughts and prayers, which is like, holy cow. Like the first time I heard this, I just rounded the corner onto Danforth, and I was walking, and I stopped and stood in the park and listened to this song, because it's just, wow. I just love when, it's funny because like Jason Isbell was an original member of Drive-By Truckers, no longer is. but he's somebody who, wears his heart on his sleeve as a writer, also wears his heart on his sleeve online, and is constantly met with that, hey man, just sing your songs. We don't want to hear your view on politics. It's like, okay, so because you're a musician, your views on the rest of the world aren't applicable. To me, it's the exact opposite. I mean, those two things go hand in hand. And if they don't for you, I'm probably not interested in you as an artist. So when a band that is geographically in a place where an opinion like this would be met with a lot of flack says it so plainly and so simply and directly, just blows me away. So they're a beautiful group of people.
The Weather Station is next. Yeah. Robber.
Yeah, so just only because the last record that Tamara did, I don't know Tamara, but I think she's just a fantastic songwriter and the wherewithal in her lyrics and the music. The last record, which was a self-titled one that has the song 30 on it, was one of my favorites from a couple of years ago. So again, didn't know this. I don't follow that closely that I knew something new was coming, but when something new comes along from a band who's done something previously that kind of blew you away, and then the next thing blows you away even more, it's like, I just love that progression where you can hear all the things that made you like the band the first time around. And, and I'm kind of a Fairweather fan. I didn't know her work before that. I kind of dug into it since that record. But this song just came out as a single a couple of weeks ago, and it's fantastic.
Yeah.
2 drummers, and she also directed a really, really cool video to accompany it that, is one of those ones that the video's so good that it reminded me of those days of when Much Music was only showing videos. Oh, yeah. And I'm sure, you're of that vintage too. So you remember, you would sit and watch whoever. Can I think of an example of something that, everything from like Van Halen to like XTC, like Dear God XTC, where you would watch that video 40 times and not think anything of it. Yeah. Because there was so much in the video and the songs were so good. I find video in general right now is a little more of a throwaway. Less budget, I think just less sort of forethought into how it's put together. But this one for Robber is like totally worth watching. It's so good. It's so good. And, and again, great on her. She writes the song, she sings the song, and she writes and directs the video. Like, holy cow. Like, what can she do?
Wow. Dear God, XTC.
Yeah.
Jeez.
No, but you remember those days when when you wouldn't think twice to watch it. In fact, you would probably hope that it would come on again, like just so you could see it again.
It's funny because you hit a nerve with that one, because I would wait for that one to come on. Yeah. Because I can see the video in my head right now. Same. Actually playing back.
I could probably give you a shot by shot account of it.
In the tree, like,
when the camera goes up.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's awesome.
Wow. Last tune, Daniel Romano. Gone is all but a quarry of stone.
Yeah. A great song from his record Mosey, and I think Mosey is the record of his that I know the most. I think I only wanted to make the comment that this man seems to be some sort of superhuman. He's put out 9 records since the pandemic started. And I think his plan was to put out 2 records and then do a bunch of touring, but because nobody's touring, he's just kind of pumping out more and more music. And each one, I haven't listened to all of them. I've listened to probably 3 or 4 of them so far. Each of them has its own style. Mosey has a real sort of definitive style, and that song, Gone is all but a quarry of stone, that was the first song that I sort of heard that thought, whoa, this is good. Also with a really good video, by the way. And a video that I only think I saw on YouTube. Don't think it got a lot of play otherwise, but I've written a little bit during the pandemic. I haven't written 9 albums. I maybe have an album and a half now.
9 records. That's that's more than one a month, really, isn't it?
Songs or albums? Oh, yeah. Albums. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I think some of it's archival, but still, like, it's just...
Still. There was a guy, what was that guy's name, Guided by Voices?
Oh, Robert Pollard.
Yeah. He did the same thing, didn't he? Yeah. Would write a song in like 10 minutes. Bang.
You write shorter songs, though. The sort of seminal Guided by Voices albums that I know, like, the songs are like 35 seconds long, and it's brilliant. Like, you just get the hook, and then you're out.
Oh, totally. Yeah, well, he was like the microwave songwriter. Yeah. It was just like, here's the hook right here, and then bang, I'm off. Like, it's done. You don't have to wait around for it. He also used to drink like a case of beer on stage. Did you ever see him live?
I've seen Guided by Voices twice, and yes, you're right.
He was a freak of nature. So what he would do, he would bring an actual case of beer on stage, and he would just open a beer, and it would fly all over the place. He would pour most of it into his mouth, and then throw the bottle or the can or whatever it was, throw some into the crowd. And by the end of the show, he had consumed 24 beers.
In the early 90s, we toured with a U.S. band called the Dirt Farmers, who had a drummer named Country Dick Montana, who was probably one of the nicest and most gregarious people I've ever met in the music business. And he sat behind the kit and sang. And by the time I met them, they were all completely sober. But they had developed this thing early in their career where the crowd would throw beer at them, like not the bottles, but liquid. So they would all leave the stage drenched in beer. And he told me once when we were at a after party of a show in Winnipeg, I think, and he said, "You don't know many times we've been arrested driving away from a show because we get pulled over and all they can smell is beer." And we're like, none of us have had a drop, but we're soaked in beer.
Of course,
Anyways, he literally died of a heart attack on stage playing the drums.
Wow. Well, if you're gonna go,
I mean, it seemed like it happened far too soon, but I know that would have been where he'd want to go if he was going.
Yeah. Jeez. That is your song list, my friend.
5 skin vibrators for this time.
There you go.
Am I allowed to say that?
Absolutely. We can say anything we want. It's been a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. And I'm glad that you wrapped up this series.
Oh, nice. Yeah. I'm glad to be a part of the series at all. And what an honor to have done 5 times. Has anybody else done 5?
I don't believe so. I'm thinking in my head right now, Rick Emmett's close. Rob Pruce is close. Probably missing one or two.
You probably need to give them a call and say, what's going on? Like,
you need a t-shirt?
There is
want to be in line
there's
for
incentive
a jacket
now too, right? So
that's right. See, it's a tiered plan. Smart, right?
Yeah. Thanks, Brent. This has been fun. I think I maybe monopolized the conversation too much, but it's
the guest is the star. No, I'm glad that you're here. And this wraps up the No Sleep Till Sudbury Steam Whistle on Location series. I've had an incredible time here. I'm so grateful to Steam Whistle for doing this, especially because of COVID. And I got to thank everybody at the Roundhouse for making this happen. Lisa Taillefer, Samantha Nadalin, who was fantastic. Both days I was here. Couldn't have been better. Thank you so much. Tanya Mora, Greg Taylor. I want to thank all my amazing guests. Tim McLaughlin, The Spoon, Sandra Boza. Jordan Paul did not make it. I regret that. We'll get him back in at another date. Susie Corey, and of course, weighing in at about 6 cases of Steam Whistle, Mr. Stephen Stanley.
The heavyweight champion of the world.
So what do you say we go and enjoy one of those beers right now?
I would love to.
All right. This has been No Sleep Till Sudbury with Brent Jensen and my very special guest, Mr. Stephen Stanley.
Thank you, Brent.
Take good care, everybody.
Brent Jensen is the best-selling author of No Sleep Till Sudbury, Leftover People, and All My Favorite People Are Broken. All titles available in stores and on Amazon worldwide.